I'm
Welcome
Matt.
to the Mike Miller Show.
Will I be a good man? Will I be true? True to myself, be true to you.
Happy Wednesday, America, including liberals. Welcome to the show. We have a good show today. We have a lot of stuff. I am like a kid on Christmas morning today. We have my pal, and he is just consider him a good friend. Not been on for a while, but the ever brilliant conservative comedian. And as I pimped the show on Facebook, in parentheses after that, I said, yes, there is such a thing as a conservative comedian. They are just few and far between. But anyway, Evan Sayet joins us at the bottom of the hour. He's looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm going to flip some stuff around on him, which he's going to like. So we're going to do that. So, okay, Jessica, today, like I said, like I should have qualified that. Like I'm like a nerd on Christmas morning.
Okay.
Today. And you know why, right?
I'm not sure. I think I do.
Tell me what you think it is.
What does it have something to do with Trump?
Oh, what is that? What? Now you have piqued my curiosity. By the way, you people who are not linguists, that's P-I-Q-U-E, not P-E-A-K. But or obviously the other peak. What did Trump do?
He had like a speech earlier today, and everybody
It's a
was
big military
commenting on it.
speech.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I read over it. You know what? Well, whatever. We may actually get to that, but if we do, it'll be at the end. No, hell no. The iPhone 7 Plus and the 7 as well announced, huh?
I should have known that one.
Well, yeah, that's why I said nerd.
Yep, that's
People
true.
generally, most people who like Trump aren't nerds. In fact, they're probably the antithesis of nerds, and that was kind of a left-handed slam. But no, the iPhone, the 7 Plus, I will have, as I said, excuse me, on Facebook, I will have my grabby little hands. Some would think of them as possibly grubby, but yeah, I'll be grabbing this thing as soon as my carrier has it available. I think I've told you before, like I still have a 5S, and I held off on the 6 Plus. Once I became eligible for the whole deal, about 4 or 5 months ago, and I had discipline because I want this one. So that's what's happening. The big news, you know what? I said this on Facebook. Like, is iPhone still a big deal? Because you have detractors out there, right? Other people say, oh, their sales are sucking in China right now, and their sales are flat. Which always happens, by the way, prior to a new model being released, because there's a lot of people who do what I just said I've done. But it's been, in fact, it still is, only they have a different story right now. It's the top story on NBCnews.com. And they have pictures and the whole bit. So it's a big deal. It's pricey.
I mean, how much is it? I don't know. What is new about the 7?
Well, let me run through this just a little bit. And this goes in reverse order because I'm on a site, Us Weekly of all places, because it's had updated stuff just a tad more than some of the other sites I was looking at earlier. But let me do pricing first. It's pricey. The 7 is going to start at $649. 7 Plus starts at $769. Of course, that's based on that price goes up if you want more than 32 gig drive. So the 32 gig 7 Plus is $769. Anyway, 10 major features, as they say. This almost reads as if Apple wrote it, but apparently there are folks at Us Weekly who are excited as well. So it's going to be, like I said, or did I say, they're losing the headphone jack.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. That's going to be a disaster.
Why do you think?
Because people are going to lose those little things so quick. I mean, it's not going to be a disaster for Apple because they're going to sell 80 bajillion of those just because people keep losing them.
You talking about the converter?
I'm talking about the earplugs that they're getting rid of.
Oh yeah, those
They're going to have wireless ones.
Like,
so.
Yeah, no, I know that, but there was a rumor that they would also provide free. This did not maybe happen, but there's a rumor floating around for a while that there was a whatever you want to call it, a little thing. I think that's the technical definition of it, that plugs into the FireWire port, what you use to recharge, that would then let people with existing headphones plug into that. I did not hear that today. But those EarPods are going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of they're either $159 or $169. So you think people are going to lose them?
Oh yeah, I think that's going to get lost real quick.
Did you see pictures of them?
I did.
They look like everything out. You got to admit, and I know you're a Samsung clown. I mean, owner, but everything they build just looks so cool, doesn't it? Those things look pretty. They make cool.
They make it look pretty, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what they do. So let's see. Water and dust resistant. To the defense of Samsung, they follow Samsung in the water resistant thing. Although there was a problem, right, with the people were getting all over Samsung because some outfit did a test, 2 different tests, and it wasn't, not so much in terms of water resistant. And Samsung blamed that on faulty construction.
I don't know when that happened.
Huh?
I don't know when that happened, but I know my mom's already dropped her phone in water, and it's pretty nice.
How do people do that? My daughter.
I don't know. If there's a body of water, my mom will find a way to drop a phone there.
To throw her phone in it?
Yep.
My daughter, Amy, this was back a couple of years, and a couple of iPhones again. No, you go actually a little further than that. Because Adelie, her daughter, who is now 5, was real little, and Amy hears her doing something and turns around, and Adelie has put her iPhone in the dog water bowl. So that happened. Okay, so a more advanced camera. It does have the back camera. In other words, the one that you actually use to take pictures of anyone other than yourself as a selfie. Mm-hmm. It's 2 cameras. One wide angle, one not. Supposedly a whole bunch of the flash is new. It's LED flash, 50% more light. Front camera improved too for you selfie people. But one wide angle lens on the back and one telephoto lens. It has the Retina HD display, stereo speakers, the EarPod thing. Yeah, we talked about that. Wireless AirPods. Don't know what that is. If you're totally ready to ditch the cords, there's a wireless version of the Apple headphones. Well, that seems to be redundant. More faster processors. I don't know that I have it all, but I've been waiting. I'm pretty serious. My problem is trying to decide what color to get.
It looks, I just started looking at it because I was like, what is it that they did different? I mean, it looks a lot like the Note 7, honestly.
Well, they've been playing catch up. First of all, Note 7, the whole Note 7 thing, or the whole however many Samsungs they've had, smartphones, they wouldn't exist, at least in their present form, if they didn't rip off Apple stuff from the beginning.
Well,
you know that, right?
The iPhone wouldn't exist without Samsung parts. So, I mean,
no, I understand that.
Chicken and egg thing there.
You can contract with people to build whatever part you want. I get that. But Steve Jobs, before he got sick, he said if he had to spend, he was a ruthless bastard. I mean, right? The people know that.
Oh yeah, he was a dick.
He said he would spend every dime that Apple had at the time to screw Samsung over. He thought the whole thing was a rip. And to your defense, they've won lawsuits back and forth. But I mean, just think about it. The thing looks, virtually the same as the iPhone. They definitely copied all that. They even, when Apple has the 6S,
They definitely did that now.
so then Samsung has the S6. I mean, come on, right? So anyway, we don't get into all that. So I'm just pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I like my little S Pen and everything. I do have a recall on my phone, so that's nice.
Yeah, that's what you said. Over
Yeah.
what?
I don't know. Some people, it was like 30 people's phones
batteries
exploded or something. And that's actually because they decided to do this stupid Apple crap and do a unibody instead of having it where you can take the battery out. I mean, it's so annoying.
Oh,
to me.
I did not know that that has
Yeah,
non-removable-
it's a unibody. They decided. Well, this is the thing that's been happening with Samsung, which is kind of annoying to me, is that they've been trying to make them look more like iPhones. Which
that's from the
the
beginning.
one before this, not from the beginning. But now, before they didn't have unibodies. Like the best thing about Samsung before was that they were trying to be different from the iPhone. So you were able to have removable parts. You were able to have the expandable memory.
Sure, yeah,
and that's why they
that's
had
right, too.
the thing with the S5 and the Note 5. The problem that everybody that is Android user was really pissed off because they're like, why would you get rid of the things that made you better than the competition? And, they got rid of the expandable memory and they were trying to be exactly like iPhone and everybody hated it. So then this next iteration, they went back to, they gave us the expandable memory back. They changed some stuff back that we like as far as, our abilities on the programming itself, but they still kept the unibody design, which they did for the water resistance. I understand that, but it's still kind of a pain in the ass, like when you have a recall like this, because instead of changing the battery, you got to turn the whole phone back in.
All right, let me say one more thing before we burn any more of the show, before we stop burning the rest of the show on talking about iPhones and Samsung phones. I'm a big Samsung fan. I have a Samsung all-in-one in the office around the corner, and my whatever the model is, Samsung Curve TV, is just sweet as can be. So I love Samsung. I'm just I'm an Apple nerd. I'm an Apple geek, and I can't help it. So that's what it is. So I'm really happy today. But let me tell you something I'm not happy about. I'm actually somewhat depressed.
Oh, what?
Amy Schumer
Okay.
has come out as the latest Hollywood loon. I mean, respected celebrity, who in her case is going to, quote, move to Spain if the Trumpster is elected president.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good for her, I guess.
I'm pretty upset about that. Let's listen to her. I sent you a clip, right?
Yes.
Talk about stuff. And I believe on this clip, I've been busy as can be, multitasking ever since 7 o'clock this morning. But this completely ridiculous, stereotypical view that she has and paints of people who don't like Hillary. But let's listen to that clip.
The name Hillary Clinton, in America, you get incredible responses. There'll be those who love her, and there'll be those with visceral hatred on their faces.
Well, that's what I'm saying with the not being informed, because those people aren't informed. If you go, why don't you like Hillary? They'll go, she lied about her emails. What else is she going to lie about? People get one fact, and that's what they latch onto about a candidate. They go, but she lied about that. I'm like, well, Donald Trump has a fake college. Donald Trump doesn't pay his workers. He won't release his taxes. There's never been a nominee who's ever not released their taxes. So, and I don't think you can I haven't had a conversation with anyone who doesn't like Hillary where they've had anything meaningful to say.
If it isn't Hillary in November, does your act change? Does your outlook
My
change?
act will change because I'll need to learn to speak Spanish, because I will move to Spain or somewhere. It's beyond my comprehension if Trump won. It's too crazy.
Talk to me a little bit about.
She just demonstrated quintessentially the shallowness of left-wing loons. Well, if you don't like Hillary, it's just because you don't understand the issues. What you'd say, what they say when I ask them, back up the bus a minute. Well, I don't talk to anybody who doesn't like Hillary. Well, no, in your little liberal bubble, of course you don't. But anybody who doesn't like Hillary, they're going to tell you that why not? Because she lies. No, I'm going to tell you, Amy, that because virtually everything that she supports and the left supports is not good for this country. Wealth redistribution, opening the borders, putting up welcome signs, Obamacare, foreign refugees, the whole bit. I mean, so see, she doesn't even know or realize because of her little liberal loony bubble that there's a whole bunch of people like, screw Trump. I don't care about Trump. I do care about what liberals have done to this country for a long time. I mean, so I think I just find that hilarious.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping she would have had a little bit more for that. I mean, I think that they're... Well, and the thing is, it's so disingenuous. There's definitely a lot of points that people bring up, even on her own team, that make huge problems for Hillary. So, come on.
Yes. And I could get a little bit worked up about this stuff. But what Trump says, and again, I don't care about Trump. Any conservative, Trump just comes out and says it matter-of-factly, which, I don't admire a whole lot about Donald Trump, but I do this. The what the hell do you have to lose thing and everything else he says about it. New Black Panthers leader. Let me say that slowly. A new Black Panthers leader. I put this up a while back on IJR. Let me read my headline. New Black Panthers leader says Trump is right. Black voters have been pimped like prostitutes. That part's a quote by Democrats. And it's completely true. This guy's name is Quanell X. And I actually had heard of him prior to running across this article and deciding to write a post about it. He's leader of the New Black Panther Party in Houston, says it's time for black voters to, quote, re-examine the relationship they have with the Democratic Party and truly examine, again in quotes, Trump's outreach. Let me – gosh, we're not going to get to half of the stuff I wanted to do. We talked too much about the iPhone. Let me just read a little bit about what he said. This is all in quotes. Let me say to the brothers and sisters who listened and watched that speech, we may not like the vessel that said what he said, but I ask us to truly examine what he said because it's a fact for 54 years. Listen, you people, we have been voting for the Democratic Party like no other race in America, and they have not given us the same loyalty and love that we have given them. We as black people have to re-examine that relationship. Where we are being pimped like prostitutes, and they're the big pimps pimping us politically. Love this part. Promising us everything, and we get nothing in return. He even went after Obama. And this is a leader of the New Black Panther Party. Barack Obama, our president, served 2 terms. Somebody's listening, by the way, a liberal pal of mine who loves Barack Obama and is very disheartened that Hillary will not fill Barack Obama's shoes. Here's what Quanell X said. Barack Obama, our president, served 2 terms. The first black president ever. But did our condition get better? Did financially, politically, academically, with education in our community, did things get better? Are our young people working more than what it is? He didn't say that. Than what is, yeah, that's not right. Before he came to office, the condition got even worse. So now we as black people have to do and remember what Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. No politician can save the black community. We've got to do it ourselves. Black America has received a white snow job, if you will, from liberals, from Democrats in this country for more than 50 years. And he's right. This guy's right. So, yeah, just, and people like Amy Schumer, I mean, people like, liberal friends, they get mad and ticked off whenever you ask them to prove anything with substance. facts, data, history. That's why they get so emotional and mad, because they can't. They can't even pretend global warming. There's talk about whatever percentage of scientists, and then they selectively pick old studies, or they tell us that the polar ice caps are melting when there's more polar ice, particularly in Antarctica, than in however many years. And I just get incensed about these people. So Amy Schumer, anyway, let me just quickly run through a few others. Someone I loathe even more, or I should have said love, even more than Amy is a disgusting Lena Dunham. She's leaving. Miley Cyrus is leaving. Samuel L. Jackson is leaving. George Lopez, Jon Stewart, he joked about it. Nev Campbell, Raven Simone, Whoopi Goldberg, Eddie Griffin. You know what? Don't let the door hit you in the ass. I want to get out there and rally America now to vote for Trump, and I'll help these bastards pack and pay their airfare. Other than
I just
that,
think
I
it's
have no
funny that
feelings
this
on it.
happens every election now.
It
It
does,
just doesn't mean anything anymore. I feel like, and nobody does it.
It doesn't.
Nobody does it.
They do it for attention.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that Cher, the climate genius, the world-renowned climatologist, and renowned about everything else, I'm sure she's drunk tweeted about this. She drunk tweets about everything else. So I don't know, man.
I don't know either. Honestly.
So here's the deal. You know what? I bet we're not even going to get those two clips. But
You can hit the Hillary one.
So here, I want to do this because the Trump folks. I'm switching gears kind of in a different political direction here. Trump supporters, my dear Trump-a-Loompa pals, are just, their panties are wet. And I mean that in a good way, because Trump is closing the polls, right? Mm-hmm. So Lindsey Graham, of all people, right? Former rival. This is a guy, by the way, who called Trump a nut job. That's a quote, a nut job and a loser as a person. That guy, okay, on multiple occasions. He said Trump is getting better. You can see a more disciplined message. If he can hold it together for another 8 weeks, and then he trailed off, he said he's had massive political body blows that would knock anybody else out. If he can cross the lines in the eyes of the public and be ready for the job, then I think you're going to have one hell of a race. You know what? Let me, again, well, never mind. Let's talk about polls a little bit, because the Daily Caller, and I put a link into this real quickly, a number of recent polls show the race. This supports what Graham said. A number of recent polls show the race between Trump and Clinton narrowing, a development happening as a result of some unsure Republicans who finally decided to support Trump. Then he runs through the numbers in CNN and a bunch of them. Let's talk for a second about this whole polling nonsense. Okay, first of all, polls are a snapshot in time. I think people who don't want to believe what they want to believe before they read a particular poll understand that. More importantly, national polls are relatively insignificant unless there is, consistently beyond a margin of error. But this thing is all about not a national election, but 50 state elections. And if you look at that, I have multiple links here. One of them, a couple of them from Real Clear Politics. But the Democrats have a huge head start as it relates to electoral votes. They're conservative in their projection here, Real Clear Politics. They have Hillary starting out at 229 and Trump at 154. I've seen that number as high as mid-160s, which is probably a bit opportunistic. So this thing is going to happen the way I've said it's going to happen. And I just, So
I still think it's going to be pretty close.
It'll be close.
Unless we have an increase in the amount of precincts that vote over 100%, but
Yeah, well, James Carville, the Raging Cajun, who I like, by the way, he was the mastermind of Bill Clinton's run for the presidency. he's like just losing it today, saying how ridiculous that is. And, maybe you could throw 100 votes here and 100 votes there. But yeah, let's do that Hillary thing. I think we can get that in. Hillary just blamed her mind on what. Her mind being, not her mind, being Hurricane Hermine on, guess what?
Global warming, probably.
Global warming, pretend global warming. Of course, they call it climate change. Now, let's, since we're running to the bottom, let's just throw that clip in, and then I'll give you a fact.
2015 was the hottest year on record, and the science is clear. It's real. It's wreaking havoc on communities across America. Last week's hurricane was another reminder of the devastation that extreme weather can cause, and I send my thoughts and prayers to everyone affected by Hermine. But this is not the last one that's going to hit Florida, given what's happening in the climate. Nobody knows that better than folks right here in Tampa and in the broader region. Sea levels have been rising here about an inch per decade since the 1950s. At the rate we are going, by 2030, which is not that far away, $70 billion of coastal property in this state will be flooding at high tide. And whenever our infrastructure is threatened, so too is our homeland security. The next president will have to work with communities like Tampa's to prepare for future storms. When I'm in the Oval Office, I'm going to work with local leaders to make smart investments in infrastructure to help protect regions from funding and other effects of climate change.
Hillary, I just got some reverb there. It's Hermine. Sorry, Hillary memo. This was the first hurricane to make landfall in Florida in 11 years, and after Katrina, it was, oh my God! It's what was that? Was it a Kurt Russell movie? That thing in New York about global warming, like happening to the extent that tidal waves and crap were coming.
Are you talking about like that 2012 thing?
Whatever. I mean, I
don't know what movie it was.
But this is, like I said, look at newer studies. Look, every time there's a hurricane, every time there's a tornado, spate of tornadoes, every time there's massive snowfall, every time there's massive rainfall, every time there's a drought, every time there's a tremendous cold spell somewhere, the liberal loons who believe in this stuff, to the extent that they believe in it, cry climate change. And you know what? It's called weather. It's called weather.
Well, I just thought it was funny that she's talking about Florida. She's like, that's not the last hurricane that's going to hit Florida. I'm like, I feel like that's part of living in Florida. It's just like earthquakes in California. That's kind of what is our climate.
Yeah. And again, you look at the last 11 years, it's been pretty damn mild in terms of even tropical storms. But again, and of course, Democrats always call stuff that they want to tax people more, the rich who need to, quote, pay their fair share, that they take that money and then they call it, as she just did, an investment. Obama's real good at that. We're going to invest in this. It's called wealth redistribution, and that is the number one purpose, particularly when it relates to the world, this whole climate change nonsense. Speaking of invest, we have to invest in the bottom of the hour. We got to kick it out of here, and we will be right back with Evan Say It. Don't go away.
True to myself, be true to you. The devil is a good man with the devil inside, and I'll be a good man without you.
as promised at the beginning, Evan, I called you the ever-brilliant conservative comedian, and then in parentheses, I said, yes, conservative comedians exist, and they're just few and far between. But anyway, when I put up a promo on Facebook, that's what I referred you to as. So that's how I see you, man. How are you?
I am well, and the truth is there would be more conservative comedians if there were places for us to work. You know, I've been fortunate in that I've been able to eke out a niche for myself, but there are a lot of others out there who simply can't find any place to work because there is, as another conservative comedian, Eric Golub, would say, there's ideological bigotry.
Yeah. Do you know of any, and I obviously don't want the names, nor would you want to give them to me. Do you know any comedians who are, or at least lean to the conservative side, who hide it so that they can work places that the conservative couldn't?
Well, we first need to differentiate between comedians who are conservative and comedians who use their conservative values in their act. You know, there are right? I mean, I'm not just a comedian who happens to be conservative. I'm a conservative comedian. I'm a political comedian. And I talk about politics, and I do so from not just right of center, but significantly right of center.
Right.
And yeah, there are certainly others. There's a gentleman named Brad Stein, Styne, who is spectacular. And no, he doesn't hide it. But he also doesn't play the mainstream comedy clubs because you just simply won't get a gig there. He does what's called the church circuit. And he goes and he does his stand-up comedy mostly at churches. He self-funds videos and then sells them via the churches and via conservative websites and a mailing list that he has accrued that no other comedian, no comedian on the left would have to do for themselves. They would have agents and managers and PR people. And of course, they'd be seen in all the clubs and on the late night television shows. So, you know, somebody like a Bill Maher can be seen by 1 million people at once, where when we're promoting our shows, we have to promote them one person at a time.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. I mean, you're not just a conservative comedian. You're a conservative comedian who chooses to do conservative comedy.
Right. And by the way, that's no accident, by the way. I was out of stand-up completely. My first 15 years as a stand-up, you know, from graduating college and hitting the circuit, I was a rather generic comedian. I don't mean that in any self-insulting way, sure. But there was no political bent. And culturally, I was a New York City-born liberal Jew. And so in my social commentary and my jokes, there was the brain-dead narrative that leans left, you know, and then my kid was born, and I didn't want to be on the road 40 weeks a year. So I segued into writing for television. And I wrote for the Arsenio Hall show. I wrote Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher for 5 or 6 years, et cetera, et cetera. But when I had my political awakening as a conservative, I said to myself, what weapon can I bring to the culture war that our side seems to be missing? And the answer was we did not have a Bill Maher for the right. And at that point, I put together an act for the first time in 15 years. It was decidedly political. It was intentionally political. And so it's not a coincidence or it's not an accident that I evolved into a political conservative comedian.
At what age did that happen?
Oh, gee whiz. Soon after 9/11, so I would have been 41.
You know what? That plays perfectly to the old, and I don't know who said it first, but the old line, which has a lot of truth in it for, I think, objective people. If you're not a liberal when you're 20, you don't have a heart. If you're not a conservative when you're 40, you don't have a brain.
Right, and that's exactly true. And look, the reality is twofold. One, nobody grows up to become a liberal. Most children are liberals because they're naive, because they have no real world experiences to test the theories against, because they don't pay any bills, and because the consequences of their stupidity are mitigated by their parents who look after them and protect them. So substitute parents for government, and the naivete remains. And so you are either a liberal when you're young and grow up and become a conservative, or you're a liberal when you're young and never grow up.
That's excellent. And I have a couple of people listening who are probably just gnashing their teeth right now, but he's right, you guys, and you know who you are. Anyway,
Mike, let me do this very quickly to the people who might be gnashing their teeth. Think about it. I can name you 20 people off the top of my head who were liberals when they were young, who are now staunch conservatives, including myself. I mean, you can add Dennis Miller to that. You can add Dennis Prager to that. You can add Michael Medved. You can add David Mamet. You can go on and on. Try to name me anybody who grew up with conservative values, learned more about the world, experienced more, tested the infantile belief that you hold when you're a child against real world experience, and then said, you know what, conservatism is wrong. I'm going to suddenly now become a liberal. You can't name anybody.
They can't, and this is why, again, I refer to you as ever brilliant. Anyway, when I normally have guests on, I do the politics thing first, do the update since I talked to them last, and then I do the, what's going on in your world and how can people learn more about you and all that stuff. But we've kind of been doing that, and I want to continue that a bit. I'm on evansayet.com, and you guys, Evan, E-V-A-N, Sayet, SAYET.com. And, you just mentioned a few people. There's a scroll running through this feature image on your page. Let me just read it as it goes. Brilliant. These are all in quotes. Rush Limbaugh. This is about you. Brilliant. Larry Elder. Love Larry Elder. Let me do a couple of more. Brilliant. Dennis Miller. And I know the other guy's coming up next, I believe. Brilliant Dennis Prager. This site is, did you redo this not real long ago, or has it been like this for a while?
Not all that long ago, but it I don't know, maybe a year and a half, 2 years now. You really should go to my website more often. It's evansayet.com.
Yeah. I just told you. I'm there now, and I just told the folks the URL. On this site, by the way, articles and videos from conservative speaker Evan Sayet. If you've not seen any of Evan's videos, you need to go on here and see them. And plus, the Kindergarten of Evil. Again, for folks who are new listeners, explain that a little bit. What's it called? Of Evil?
The Kindergarten of Eden. How the modern liberal thinks. Right, and it's taken from a lecture that I gave to the Heritage Foundation almost exactly 10 years ago now. It'll be the 10th anniversary in March, and I plan to do a big revisit to the Heritage Foundation to celebrate that, which is now and has been for a while the single most viewed lecture in their entire history. Let me put that into context. Ronald Reagan would lecture there. Margaret Thatcher would lecture there. William Buckley, obviously, because he was the founder, would lecture there. It's my talk on how the modern liberal thinks that is by far and away the single most viewed lecture in their entire history. And the book was an opportunity to not only revisit that, but, when you give a speech, you don't have a chance to edit something that you may have misstated or might have stated better. But in the book, you do. And so in the book, I expand and expound upon that lecture. And it is literally the definitive explanation as to why so many good, nice, decent people, I'm talking about our friends, our relatives, our colleagues, our neighbors, why it is they reject facts, they despise the concept of reason, and invariably side with evil, failure, and wrong, and hate all that is good, right, and successful. I'll just give you two examples, one domestic, one foreign. How do you look at Ferguson and decide that this career criminal who had just strong-armed a local businessman who punched a cop in the face, took his gun, and attempted to murder him is not only an innocent victim of racism, but there's actually a plaque in Michael Brown's honor in Ferguson. Meanwhile, this good, decent cop who'd been patrolling the streets trying to keep blacks safe from criminals, he's the evil and horrible racist. That's not just wrong, it's diametrically opposed to the truth. Similarly, how do you look at the Middle East and see this tiny and wonderful liberal democracy of Israel with its freedom of speech and freedom of assembly and its gay pride parades and its woman prime minister back in the 1960s, surrounded by the misogynist, homophobic, xenophobic, and Mike, I do believe even somewhat anti-Semitic Islamic nations, and decide not only is the problem the Jews, but you're going to remove the sanctions on the Islamic terrorists and put them on the Jews. Why do Democrats hate Jews so much? Why do they defend criminals in America? Well, my book, The Kindergarten of Eden, How the Modern Liberal Thinks, explains why.
You and I have talked about this at least 2 or 3 times in the past over the last several years. You have the liberals hate Jews thing, which is, in my opinion, completely correct. And who am I to, given that you were a liberal Jew, I think you're a bit more qualified than I am to talk about that. But Jews, I don't want to say Jews hate conservatives, but Jews, the majority of Jews in this country, overwhelmingly vote Democrat and are much more willing to pull a hamstring racing to condemn Israel and support Muslim terrorists. Tell the folks why they do that.
Well, because you have to understand that to be called a Jew is different than any other religion. Even to identify yourself as a Jew is different than any other religion. If you identify yourself as a Christian, if you come out of the voting booth and they say, okay, who did you vote for? And you say whomever. And then they say, okay, and what demographic are you? If you say you're a Christian, if that's your answer, chances are that you believe that Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, that you are actively a Christian. If you're not, all right, there's no such thing as a secular Christian. You never hear that expression. You never hear the expression secular Muslim. If you identify as a Muslim, or if you're called a Muslim in the demographic groupings, it means that you believe that the Quran is the final testament of God and Muhammad is perfect messenger. The only religion where you would never say, I'm secularly Amish, I'm a secular Mormon. There's the only ones that you say I'm a secular religion is I'm a secular Jew. And it's not the religious Jews who vote Democrat. It is the secular Jews, or as Dennis Prager would call them, the non-Jewish Jews. They're not Jewish by anything other than the accident of their birth. They plopped out of a Jewish woman's womb, period. And so to expect somebody to have morals, to expect somebody to be decent, to expect somebody to be smart, caring, loving, generous, or any of the other things you associate with practicing Jews, just because they were born to a woman who was Jewish, that's almost racism. The idea that you were defined by the accident of your birth is almost the definition of racism. So it's not Jews who vote Democrat. It's secular Jews. It's non-Jewish Jews.
And again, you and I've had that discussion, and I know that, but I wanted you to explain that to the folks who may not have heard you before, and explain their fears and why they vote secular Jews, why they vote Democrat versus conservatives, who in this country, Republicans are the greatest friend of Israel in the history of the planet.
In the history of the world. Absolutely. And the reason is this. First of all, that has not always been true of European Christians. And most American Jews, most Americans don't recognize the vital difference, the vital change between European Jews and American Jews. European Christians and American Christians. In Europe, Judaism is seen as an antithetical religion. Whereas in America, it has been embraced as part of the Christian narrative. That's why it's only about America that you ever hear the expression Judeo-Christian. Europe doesn't describe itself as Judeo-Christian. And so the Christians of Europe were antagonistic to the Jews of Europe because they didn't want their children converted. And if they were converted, they'd no longer be saved. If they weren't saved, their children would go to hell forever. And they despised other religions for that reason. But in America, because the Christians see Jews as part of their narrative, there is no antagonism. In fact, there's love and embrace of the Jews. But most American Jews don't recognize this. So they see the Republicans as the party of Christian values and antithetical religion, and they much prefer to be in the Democratic Party, which is the party of no values. That's what liberalism means today. It doesn't mean you're open-minded. It means you have no values. You don't have values that would see you. You know, John Kennedy stood up to communism. All right? Today, the Democrats won't even stand up to Islamic fascism. They won't even call it Islamic terrorism. And so these Jews feel more comfortable in the party of no values, because if there's nothing they believe in, then they can't believe the Jews are bad. If they can't believe the Jews are bad, then there can't be anti-Semitism. If there's not anti-Semitism, there can't be a Holocaust. What they don't understand is that the party of no values is inherently Jew-hating, whereas the party of Christian values is really the party of Judeo-Christian values.
You also explained, and you just touched on the Holocaust, that, and again, this goes back a while because I haven't had you on for a while, but you told me the number one driving force, if you will, between most Jewish Americans is this whole safety thing. Like a Holocaust can never happen again. And for some reason, I think the Democrats can protect that better. Did I just completely blow that, or is that anywhere close to what you said?
No, I mean, what's up the Democrats can protect it. Again, they feel more comfortable in a party that has no values than they do in a party that has what they fear are Christian values, because the Christians could decide the Jews are bad. You know, if you have no values, if nothing is better or worse than anything else. Yeah. Then so the Jews think they're safer in that party. What they don't recognize, and by the way, which party is the party of BDS? All right, of actually strangling the Jewish state to death economically. Now, why the Jewish state of all the nations on this planet, with China doing the things they do, with North Korea doing the things they do, with the Sudan doing the things they do, why this tiny and wonderful democracy of Israel? For no other reason than Jew hatred is endemic to the left. It was endemic to the National Socialists. It was endemic to communism, and it's endemic to the leftism of today in the Democratic Party.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. And I think we just gave people an education, and you and I've talked about it before, about Jews in America and other places, that I think is important to understand. Let's move to, we've been talking about political parties. Where are you on Trump? I have to ask you that. Where are you, man?
I'm not a big Donald Trump fan. I really wish we had put forth somebody else. But that being said, there is no doubt that I'm going to not only vote for Donald Trump, but I'm going to support him with every ounce of energy that I have, because it's not a referendum on Donald Trump. It's a choice between him and a truly evil, corrupt, despicable leftist who is going to continue these policies of siding always with our enemies and always against our friends. You know, there's not an issue that you can look at. There's an issue you can look at where Barack Obama has not sided, and by the way, not just sided with, but lied on behalf of evil, failure, and wrong, and lied against all that is good, right, and successful. It's not a coincidence, again, that the Democratic Party under this administration lifted the sanctions on the Ayatollahs so that they can get a nuclear bomb while supporting this effort to strangle the Jews to death economically. Right? It was so galling to watch this standard bearer, which is an ironic term considering Democrats have no standards, but of the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton, use Michael Brown's mother as a prop, knowing that the whole Black Lives Matter thing and the whole hands up, don't shoot thing is an out and out lie.
And as did Barack Obama use those young children standing behind him not long after Sandy Hook, when he propose.
Yes, to Democrats. To Democrats, dead people are a prop to be used, and it doesn't even matter if it's an out and out lie. Look, it was even Eric Holder, all right, from the Justice Department, who said that Michael Brown's hands were not up, that in fact he had punched the cop in the face and tried to murder him, all right? Hillary Clinton knows this and continues to spread the lie so that more cops can be murdered. Given the choice between her then and Donald Trump, who might choose some ill-advised words now and then, there's no question who I'm going to vote for.
No. And you know what? I believe that you agree with me, and just because I think I know a bit how you think. Democrat elites, they know all this stuff. They know everything as it relates to the crap that they spew. I mean, tax the rich into oblivion, pay your fair share. But they do it to patronize, to placate, and to exploit people.
Well, look, and I'll give you another big lie that they know. Women don't get paid less than men. It's an out-and-out lie, and they know it's a lie, all right? And so why do they do it? Because Democrats need to pit people against each other, and liberals need an excuse for failure. See, the reason that the liberals hate the Jews of Israel is not because the Jews are bad. Liberals cannot distinguish between good and bad. They can't distinguish between good and evil. The only reason they hate the Jews of Israel is because the Jews of Israel are successful. And if no culture is better than any other, because that's what liberals are taught and brainwashed into believing, if there's nothing wrong with Islam, then why is it that the Jews are so successful? Why do they have giant skyscrapers in Tel Aviv? Why do they have world-class symphony orchestras?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then compare it to Gaza. There's only two possibilities. Either the Jewish culture is doing something right and the Islamic culture is doing something wrong. But if you can't believe that, if you're not allowed to believe that, then the only explanation is that the success of the Jews is unfair. And the failure of the Palestinians must come from oppression. At this point, the leaders will make up and lie about the oppression, like the Jews are committing genocide. Which is funny because at the same time, the liberals complain that Gaza is one of the most overpopulated strips of land in the entire world. So there's an overpopulation, but the Jews have been committing genocide for 65 years. Which one is it? And it doesn't matter to the liberal because they're too stupid to think.
But here's the deal. Here's the deal in a nutshell. Liberalism, the Democrat Party, as opposed to Democratic by far in this country, have been much more successful for years in getting code words and code phrases to stick, right? The glass ceiling, the war on women, rich aren't getting their fair share. I mean,
okay, I'm going to
successful at that.
Well, because we have ceded to them every means of education, communication, and propaganda. I mean, when they get a hold of your children at the age of 5, that's when the left school districts get a hold of them. And by the way, the age of 5 is exactly why my book is called The Kindergarten of Eden, How the Modern Liberal Thinks. And from the time they're 5 years old...
And they can buy that on your website, right?
Yeah, they absolutely can, or Amazon.com. Either way, it comes right back to me. But they get a hold of them before they're old enough to know how to think for themselves. Don't release them until they're 22 or 27 or 30 years old when they finally leave the college campus. And at that point, every means of entertainment is filled with leftist propaganda and lies. And the Democratic Party leadership is so vicious and hateful that, Ben Shapiro makes such a great point. He said, in the last election, Romney-Obama, both campaigns accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. The Romney campaign succeeded in portraying Obama as a good and decent family man who happens to be incredibly incompetent. And the American people bought that. The Obama campaign succeeded in portraying Romney as an animal-abusing, woman-hating, racist bigot. And when given the choice between incompetence and evil, the American people rightly chose incompetence. And I think this is one of the reasons. One more point. I'm sorry, Michael. It's your show, but
no. Go ahead.
I think this is one of the reasons that Trump is resonating so much with the Republicans. is that for the first time, instead of having a candidate who's collegial, like John McCain was, instead of having one who's a really nice guy who wins every debate, we have a guy who's willing to kick him in the balls the way they do to us, because we win every debate. There's no position a Democrat has.
Obama's, the Soviet Union called and they want their foreign policy, whatever it was, the 90s or 80s policy. Romney was right. You know what? It's incredible to me sometimes, or at least interesting, that as you talk, I mean, you just look at public education, including through state universities, you look at the media, you look at Hollywood, you look at music, you look at a lot of literature today. It's amazing that there are any millennials that actually come to their senses and say, that's all bull crap. I don't buy it.
Well, it's very hard for them to, because they live in a Garden of Eden. You know, one thing that is so profound, and I don't mean profound as in deep that I thought of it, I mean profound in its importance that I never hear other people talk about, is we are the first people in the history of the world, we being anyone born in America post-World War II, there has every other person who has ever lived in a world with disease, with communicable diseases. If you were born after World War II in America, what disease what was there? I mean, polio was vanquished, smallpox vanquished, chickenpox vanquished, measles vanquished. Right? Every other people in the history of the world until us had to worry about being hungry, going hungry. Now, not only don't we go hungry, we actually feed our cats gourmet cat food. All right? If you find $1 in the street, you go to the 99-cent store and you get a box of cereal. Right? It might be Cheery M's instead of Cheerios, but you don't go hungry. And so these people have grown up in a world, and it includes me, in which nothing bad has or could ever happen. And when you live in a world where nothing bad can happen, the bad guys become the people who have made it that way. If there's no such thing as hunger, you know who the bad guys are? The agricultural people, because they use chemicals, because sometimes there's a flood, because sometimes who do they hate? They hate Monsanto. Because if you can't be hungry, then the people who make it so you can't get hungry are the bad people. If you live in a world without disease, you know who the bad people are? The pharmaceutical companies. If you live in a world without war, you know who the bad people are? The soldiers. And so it's very hard for millennials who have never known a world where anything bad can happen. It's why they're such infants. Trigger warnings. You've hurt my feelings. I need a safe room.
Don't get me started. Yeah.
Right? I mean, they literally are infants. It's why the book's called The Kindergarten of Eden, How the Modern Liberal Thinks. They are literally morally, intellectually, and emotionally stunted at the age of 5 years old, when they first enter the kindergarten classroom, and they are rewarded and punished on no other basis, not academic achievement, no other basis than their adherence to the dictates of the cult of the left.
And I would say, you people listening with young children and teenagers and whatever, that are conservatives, I mean, that you are, and you need to go buy Evan's book, because this thing is like what did they used to call it, a primer? But this is like conservatism 101, and it's stuff that people need to know, particularly, again, as conservatives, because very seldom are win over liberals. I think they almost have to do that by themselves.
Well, actually, I've got a program. Are we running out of time? Is that what your tone of voice means?
Yeah, but we got a few minutes. Go ahead.
I've got a program I call Adopt a Democrat. And I call it Adopt a Democrat because it really is like adopting a child. One mistake that we make is when you are raising a child, you don't make everything a teachable moment. We are so aware of the fact that fact, reason, logic, evidence, history, experience, all are on our side. Everything the modern liberal believes is not only wrong, it's diametrically opposed to the truth. So we think if we just explain it to them, and when they don't get it, we try to explain it harder. And when they still don't get it, we try to make everything a teachable moment. It might take 18 years. But what you do is just have fun with your liberal friend, But when they say something particularly egregious, like when your child runs into the street, that's when you spank him. You don't spank him over everything. But when your child runs into the street, that's when you spank him. When a liberal says something particularly egregious, like, I can't believe that guy made that video that got our ambassador killed, that's when you spank them, and then you move on. And over time, you will change people. I've changed scores of them.
Okay, that's a good point. If you guys adopt a liberal, listen, we really got to scoot here. We're up against it. You got to come back. Oh, yeah, between the two of us, because I could talk to you for an hour, man. It's all like I learned stuff, and I love the exchange. We got to have you back soon. Anything else you want to tell people quickly about finding you or stuff you got going on?
Well, just very, very quickly, I just did a dream project. I did my concert video, my stand-up concert, directed by the great Lionel Chetwynd. And we did 2 shows back to back to be edited into a 1-hour show. It should be out in the next couple of weeks. It's called, at least now, it's called An Evening with Evan Sayet. And when it comes out, I need you all not only to buy it, but to promote it too. Because one thing about being a conservative, going full circle, Mike, we don't get the help of the media. We need every one person to help us, just one person at a time.
All right, here's the deal. We'll have you back in shortly thereafter. And let's talk about that, because
I look forward to that.
All right, man. Evan Sayet, the guy is, you just heard what the guy is. So, Evan, thank you very much, man, and I'll talk to you soon.
I look forward to it, Mike. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Okay, man, Jessica, I love Evan Sayet.
Yes, he's very cool.
The guy intellectually is very cool, but I mean, just kind of, you talk about years of experience in both sides. And he's very difficult to argue with. I'm not sure. I have to ask him next time he's ever participated in any debates with liberals. But again, thanks so much to Evan. And thank you guys for listening. We had a couple of snafus. We're still struggling with part of our software. That's widely used, by the way. We didn't put this together with tin cans and waxed strings. So anyway, thank you for listening. We will be back on Friday. And I have a guest. I'm just trying to decide which one of 2 it will be. Thanks a lot. See ya.